I ran into Vicky at the Blue Vision conference in Washington this spring, and I've been admiring from afar her work building an inland ocean movement. And there are a lot of reasons why that's particularly important right now because so many of the energy policy decisions affecting all of us, especially affecting our oceans, originate in all places, Colorado. Swing votes, ball carriers for legislation, a lot of it bad legislation that affects our oceans. And Vicki started trying to talk me into coming here and saying a few words. And when Vicki tries to talk you into something, it's going to happen. And so I said, well, what do you want me to talk about? And she said, well, I want you to come to Blue Vision and talk about restoring the oceans. So I looked at the Facebook post that she put up about a week and a half ago, her own Facebook page, and it showed her downstairs of her house with a mud line halfway up the window outside and a whole bunch of ice cube trays and little bric-a-brac things and waste baskets in front of the window, and water was shooting out under the window into her downstairs, and her kids were playing slip and slide on her new carpet. And I thought, Vicki, you've really gotten carried away with this inland ocean thing. I was thinking more in geologic time, not necessarily this year creating a new ocean. And so today we have about, according to last night's news, 22,000 gallons of oil floating in the floodwaters up near Platteville. The Oil and Gas Association has a sock puppet guy on TV who's explaining how it will all evaporate quickly because it's light oil. And I thought, oh my God, I'm really glad I came. We live in a time when we have the chance to actually determine the fate of the world's oceans. And that's an amazing privilege. It's not something to be taken lightly. It's, to me, something I've devoted the last 35 years of my life to. And I'm going to try to share with you, rapid fire here, some tools that have worked for me and about 50,000 other people that I've been working with. The things I'm going to show you, I didn't all do these myself. I get blamed for a lot of things that other people actually did. So I'm going to talk about grassroots and storytelling and building community-based blue power, which is really what you are here now in Colorado. Your ocean is not only in your backyard, unfortunately, but it's also on the Mendocino coast in California. It's on the Outer Banks in North Carolina. It's the Georgia Sea Islands, and it's the Florida Keys. And so welcome to your ocean. A lot of things are happening in your ocean. One of them is going to be happening as early as next year on the Atlantic coast, which is seismic airgun surveys, so they can figure out where they want to drill. Hopefully this won't be happening in your ocean anytime soon. This is the Ixtoc blowout in a U.S. rig in Mexico waters about 25 years ago that was the precursor to the BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. We didn't learn anything in Ixtoc, and we didn't learn much in BP Deepwater Horizon. So the way you deal with these things from afar or even up close is you build regional political microclimates, and that's what I feel is happening here in Boulder. And I'm going to get into a little elemental math. I never liked math. Once it got past new math, I got confused. But we live in a 24/7, 360-day-a-year news cycle. And this is a new thing. You get exposure to an issue competing with many other issues, and that exposure can come and go in a couple hours, but it can be huge exposure. It can be extremely fast. And all day I've been getting emails back from folks that are watching this live stream in California, in Washington. This is not all of us in this room. And what you set up is a resonance around an issue. You set up a resonance around the fact that we all came out of the ocean at a time when the level of salt in our bloodstreams was the same as the level of salt in the ocean. We have some subconscious, I know you're not supposed to talk about spiritual stuff, at these conferences, but we have a subconscious connection with the ocean. And I think it's actually biochemical. I think that there's more going on in that periodic table that was pointed out to us earlier. We are connected to the ocean in very powerful ways. And we live in this other environment of transmedia, which I've been studying, and that's when you use every media tool available to you. The web, Facebook, Twitter, tweets, things I can't even figure out how they work yet, plus the 24-hour news cycle. I may have been, a couple of months ago, the first person to go on Fox Business News Live and talk about global climate warming and not get thrown off the air. But you use it all, and what that creates is a simulsense environment in which all of these media tools combine with the natural world, because you can't let go of the fact that this is all being generated by nature and the environment and the planet that we live on. This surrounds the viewer or the media environment in a way that begins to transform society, so that we think about things like plastics, like oil, like dive industry. We had a wonderful discussion yesterday. We think about it in a different way, and it transforms how we view the world. And by we, I don't mean we in this room, but I mean the dominant paradigm in our society. And that builds a trust so that we know that we aren't going to lose lifestyle quality, because that's the scare tactic that the folks from the oil and gas industry are trained to scare us with. You're going to not have quality of life if you have more economical cars. Jimmy Carter walked out in 1976 and said that energy efficiency is the moral equivalent of war. I didn't have a son in the U.S. Marine Corps then, but I do now. And it's not the moral equivalent of war, it's the actual equivalent of war. And we could have had little tiny cars since 1976, and we wouldn't be nearly in the pickle that we're in right now. Now, most of the political decisions in our society, you win 3 votes out of 5 votes, at least in many communities. You have a county board of supervisors usually, or a city council. In most communities, that is 5 votes. It varies from place to place. In Gulf states, it's called county commissioners or parish leaders, but you need only 1 vote above the dominant vote to win at the local level. And that's a community voice in democracy that you can walk in on usually any Tuesday or Thursday night and talk to them. They're very accessible, and I was really glad to see your local elected officials here this morning. Because when your issue gets hot, and it does when somebody tips over an oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico or does something that calls attention to shark finning or whichever the issue is, you have an opportunity to reprogram society, not just individuals, but reprogram on a very broad scale. So I divided my life into an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper with 2 columns. And I began to move things from the left column to the right column, from the unprotected parts of the U.S. ocean to protected parts of the U.S. ocean. And obviously, I didn't do all this myself. A lot of it I did while I was representing local elected officials in Washington, D.C., and they were passing resolutions and telling me what to do. But I've been moving stuff from the left column to the right column as fast as I could, because I knew I had a limited amount of lifetime to run out. And I've still got some stuff in progress that I would like to see get done before I'm finished and out of here. And one is the northerly expansion of the Gulf of the Farallones-Cordell Bank National Marine Sanctuary, which I'm told is still going smoothly. President Obama announced it last fall, and it's on track. It will take the current northern boundary of that sanctuary, and I'll show you a map here in a minute, from Bodega Head up to Point Arena in Mendocino County. There's a lot of folks in Northern California would like to see it go to the Canadian border or Ketchikan, Alaska, but you do what you can as you can. You can't do it all at once. You move things from one column to the other. The coast of British Columbia has been leased to Chevron for 30 years, and it's under a provincial and a national Canadian moratorium to develop those leases. And about every 6 or 7 years, the Canadian government and the provincial government, under the pressure of the oil and gas industry, says, well, we got to develop those tracts, and the First Nations of Canada have never given up their rights, their rights to the seabed. They claim they still own it, and unfortunately for the oil industry, most of their tribal chiefs have now gone to law school. So that one remains in play. The richest salmon fishery on the planet in Bristol Bay, we accidentally had James Watt when he was Secretary of Interior. You remember that guy? He looked like Alfred E. Newman, but he could sure lease tracts offshore. We had to buy back Bristol Bay from the oil industry, and now, of course, there's pressure. This is the place where they film America's Deadliest Catch, great place to put risky oil rigs. And then we have a section of the Gulf Coast of Florida called the Gulf of Mexico Energy Security Act, which in a bipartisan compromise in 2006, we got protected miraculously till the year 2022, primarily because of military space use conflicts in that area. But it's a tremendous victory because it's something the oil industry really didn't want to happen, and we got the Republicans to take the lead in doing it. It will expire in 2022 unless extended, and it desperately needs to be extended. This is the proposed or in progress northern expansion of the Gulf of the Farallones and Cordell Bank National Marine Sanctuaries. It's a spectacular piece of coast. It's one of America's national treasures. It has come about by bipartisan involvement. I think we're on our 4th president and our 7th Secretary of Interior now, and we're actually going to get it done. Probably see an environmental impact statement come out late this year, early next year with some hearings, which will probably look like Woodstock next January. The National Marine Sanctuary Program is right now the only viable way to permanently protect a piece of water from offshore drilling. It does a lot of other wonderful things, but there is no other technically viable mechanism to get permanent protection from offshore drilling. Not all marine sanctuaries were created for that purpose, but on the West Coast, it was the driving force between the sanctuaries that we have there. This is where I live. And if you look at this picture, you'll see overlaid on it the interior of the dome of the U.S. Capitol. And that's the other place that I live. And I've been commuting between those two places for 35 years. So I always see Boulder from 35,000 feet. You have to go there. You have to go to the U.S. Capitol. It's where the Xerox machine is plugged in. If you want to kick that plug out of the wall for that Xerox machine and save that place you live, you need to go find out where it's plugged in. And it's always plugged in either in the Department of Interior building or somewhere in the House office buildings or somewhere in the Senate office buildings. And you have to be able to take the place you live and care about and take it back there in a politically powerful enough way to kick the plug of the Xerox machine out of the wall. We did this once a year for 27 consecutive years in a bipartisan way and maintained a congressional moratorium on offshore drilling that covers, until George Bush left office, the second Bush, it covered the entire Pacific coast, the entire Atlantic coast, Bristol Bay, Alaska, and the Gulf of Mexico along the Florida Panhandle and Florida Gulf Coast. When it expired, what it left the current administration with is a blank slate. Where's the drilling now going to occur? And that's what's being decided right now in U.S. waters. Where can we pull out some more sacred areas, some special places, get them protected? I'm very interested in the Outer Banks in North Carolina. It's another place we fought for and bought back once. I hate to see it leased again to the oil and gas industry, but you have to work these places in a certain way. And somebody said, well, can you diagram what the hell you do? And so I took one of these programs, and I'm sorry the type is so small, but it only had this program pipe size. The idea is that if you have a synapse in your system, a coordination role, that generates local opinion and local political action that creates a feedback loop to your member of Congress. Members of Congress listen to local elected officials actually better than they listen to the oil and gas industry that pays their salary in most cases. And you then plug that into the public, and you can, in fact, change even against great adversity, outgunned by the oil and gas industry by orders of magnitude. And this is how we've done it for 35 years. So this is not a copyrighted system. You need to be inclusive. You can't leave anybody out. This is building networks of networks where you have everything connecting at the middle. And that synapse role is very, very critical. And it's a role that I've had the privilege of playing for many different systems. But you create coalitions of coalitions. So you're connected to the scuba industry yesterday, and you're connected to the fishermen who really value their livelihoods. And you create these coalitions of coalitions where everything is interconnected in a way that's very stable and very viable. I was inspired by a gentleman named Marshall McLuhan who said the medium is the message. This is a very old book. You can buy it for $3 on Amazon now. And it basically is about things like the Deepwater Horizon incident, where something happens and the spotlight comes on and you jump out and do your dance quick. Because every word has a mental highway connected to it. And when something like this happens, you have a window of opportunity. And when I saw the smoke coming from that rig, well, first I got a call. And they said, quick, turn on the TV. And I turned on the TV. And I saw the smoke, and I knew that the combustibles on that platform had burned off. It had been burning, for enough hours that it wasn't mattresses anymore, it was oil. And I called 4 current modelers in the Gulf of Mexico that understood the loop currents. And I said, where are the loop currents? Because I wanted to know how fast it's going to travel. And the way it worked was, it didn't work. The PowerPoint came to a sudden end. And basically, the market, okay, this is all about marketing, which Stephanie talked about. The market becomes the lens through which we see the world. And everybody began to see offshore drilling just a little bit differently when the Deepwater Horizon did what it did. And the oil industry became seen in a different way because they lied like a rug and they got caught lying. Now we have fracking. They're lying again. They're trying to convince us that we can't brand fracking in a way that makes people understand it. I think we're doing that, but it's taking longer. And when you have a national treasure and a threat, and this is the basic math that I'm going to end with, and that threat is visible as it became in the Deepwater Horizon, and there's no effective repair, there's no cleanup technology that works, you can turn that into preservation. You can turn that into permanent protection. And I say that because we're doing that, and I invite you to join us in every which way you can. Remember, it takes 3 votes out of 5 people on your local government. It only takes 1 person to change the world, and I learned that from Bucky Fuller when I was able to study with him for a semester. He said, be the change you want to see in the world. He said, you can see how much difference 1 person can make. And I heard him say that the first time I spoke to me, and he said it again about 6 months before he passed away. And I would suggest that you build the relationships you need to do this. And that's not going to be hard. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of, I love the people who work on ocean issues. They're crazy people and a lot of fun. And some of them go to Washington and have fun on the metro. And you position your issue, and eventually you get a model that redefines the way society sees something that you care about. So that the coast of Oregon doesn't wind up looking like this, and the coast of Virginia doesn't wind up looking like this, or like this, or like this, or like this. And you have a chance, is all I'm saying. And that chance, I believe personally, will remain open for approximately the next 10 years. We will be figuring out exactly what the ocean will look like in the next 100 years. Thank you.